Tonight's little talk. Of course, um, I'm going to put this, of course, on Twitch and YouTube, and the name of the talk, of course, is Behind the DM Screen Talk, and of course, it'll have the same date code that I used on this session, 150725. It'll be titled Dungeon Preparation Tips for Roll20. So hopefully this will be educational for you and help you out. If you want to see examples of the maps that we use, you can log into that link I just gave you for DM 101, and there's examples in there, or the previous forum that we used for the previous part of the campaign. But anyways, so don't try to memorize this because I'm going to go rather quickly. Instead, use the transcription that will be uploaded along with the video link as reference. So, and only thing I ask is, before I begin, I would just ask that all questions be held until and after I'm finished with this little monologue, and it'll last for about 5 minutes. So bear with me. Okay, overview. First off, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this, and this is just one possible way. What I'm explaining is that how I make my maps. So what we do is we load our map into the background layer. We change to the objects and tokens layer, which is right above it. We use the background map as a guide, and we create everything over the top of it. So when we're done, we delete the map underneath it since it's no longer needed. We select everything that we just made on the objects and tokens layer, and we move it to the map layer below so that it won't interfere with their gaming experience and your players are trying to click their token and they're clicking map items and stuff like that. So the map layer is below that. The players operate on the objects and tokens layer. And so we'll add the things that your players will be interacting with, like monsters, NPCs, doors, treasure chests, furniture, boats, etc. on that layer. And then lastly, any useful GM information like music reminders, charts, and stuff we'll add later above it, which is hidden from view from the players on the GM layer. So this is basically what we do, or what I do rather. There's 8 steps I got here, so let me fly right into it. Number 1, first off, whenever I start a campaign for my players, I go in and make some page settings. Things like the background color. I'll pick green for outdoor, black for a dungeon. I'll enable the grid, set the grid size, which is typically 10-foot square unit, along with a contrasting grid line color. I don't worry about the other page settings. That's for later, and we don't have to worry about that, right now. Anyways, number 2, I move to the background layer. I'll drag and drop my map into the Roll20 interface and wait for it to upload into Roll20. When it's finished, then I size and map it. If necessary, I have to press and hold the Alt key on the keyboard when I click and drag my map so they can get it to line up with the grid. And I keep sizing it until it lines up with the grid. As soon as I'm done with that, then I move to the objects and tokens layer, which, like I said, is right above it. I use the map as a guide, and I create everything here temporarily, starting with the lowest elements first, like hills, moats, floors, and things like that, ending with the upper elements last, like walls and vegetation and things like that. Okay, so then number 4, I use the shape draw tool or the polygon tool. If you use the polygon tool, use it with the fill option off, and there's in the lower right hand corner there's a little color that just looks like no color. You use that, and then when you do that, then you can just go ahead and create your shape. When you're done, copy and size it if there are multiples of it, and then lastly, select your polygon or polygons and turn the fill option on by choosing a fill color. And so if you press and hold the Alt key, you can create circles when you're in polygon mode, which is kind of cool, or in the other in the shape drawing thing. If you do that, which is kind of cool, you can press and hold the Alt key, make circles. Right click over any item, move it to the front or back in relation to each other to get the orientation correct. So you can move things around on the same layer. One's in front of the other, or one's in front of the other. You can kind of keep, moving around. Anyways, number 5, when finished, move to the map layer and delete your map since it's no longer needed. Then zoom out. Click and drag and select everything on the objects and tokens layer that you just made. Right-click over one of the selected items and move it to the background layer. This will keep them from accidentally being selected by your players, and the grid will then be over those items, so you can use your grid, over what you just made. Number 6, on the objects and tokens layer, position the objects your players will interact with. When you place your first token, that will be duplicated throughout your composition. Double click it, enable the ability for players to control it, but then disable everything else in every other tab. This will allow them to move or rotate the token, but nothing else. This level of interactivity allows the players to quote-unquote dig through piles of bones to find the gold ring at the bottom, or like I said, open doors, or take lids off of barrels to reveal the snake that's inside. Oftentimes, I have layers upon layers of stuff to the point, if they get to the bottom level of a box, for instance, and they move it, they will uncover even more things, like a hole, and if they investigate the hole, they'll find a bag in there or something like that. So use your imagination, but remember, if you take your maps to this level of detail, be sure to have the player specify how many rounds or turns they will be allocating to that particular activity, because people have a tendency to get carried away and start moving things and have hours worth of character tasks completed before their first turn is even over. So likewise, if they start touching items in a room to see what is and isn't movable, then don't hesitate to immediately specify that activity is their turn. Like, okay, Mr. So-and-so explores the chest. And you'll get a little flack on the first time around, but this approach will effectively encourage restraint on the part of players to not, quote-unquote, go looking around, prematurely. 7, after that, the monster tokens are added. I basically copy and paste their data sheet from their respective monster manual right into the GM notes area inside of the token itself, which is only visible to the GM. I use the bubbles, of course, the same way that I use like on the player characters. The blue, the green is their life or hit points. Blue is the number they need in order for them for making a successful attack roll. Red is their armor class. And be sure to shut off this information inside the actual token from being visible to the players, because if you don't turn it off, they'll be able to click on the token and see what the armor class and hit points are, and you don't want that to happen. So anyway, excuse me. I also put the any treasure they may have on them in that same notes area inside of the token, or where their treasure may be found should it be in another location. There are many free rolling programs available, so I encourage you to take the time to roll hit points for each creature so they're not all the same. And this breaks up the monotony and keeps your players guessing as to what strength each one is and so forth. Try to stay away from from maxing your hit points out on every creature. That gets old pretty quick. Anyways, and lastly, I put on the GM layer in a bright color like yellow any helpful information like names of sound effects files that are supposed to be used at certain areas in the session, including like music files. I usually have one for exploring, and then others for battles that may or may not occur. I also put on my map, hidden from the players, my monster tables, along with their particular token, like right beside their entry in the table. So if a wandering monster comes up on a die roll, setting up your map this way allows you to select that particular token that has all the information, hit points all ready to go, where you can move it into position where the characters are. You can very quickly copy as many as you need, then you can click and drag and select them all, and then right click over one of the ones you select and move those objects or the tokens to the objects and tokens layer simultaneously. So to the players, they will all appear at the same time as if they're like jumping down on them from above. And so, but anyways, the whole point of all this is the actual goal of these strategies is to make your gaming experience run as quickly as possible, to not have any dead time by keeping yourself focused on the Roll20 interface and not wasting time flipping back and forth between screens, tabs, software, rule books, and things like that. Roll20 by its very nature is slow because of the mouse clicking that's required just to make it go. So even my sessions don't move as fast as I would like them to, but if I didn't incorporate these strategies, they would even be slower, which may not seem that way to you, but will seem that way to your players and the viewers on Twitch stream if you're streaming live like we are right now. And very quickly regarding token selection, if you can't find what you're looking for, always go to Google Images and get it there. I go there frequently. If you've been watching this group or looking at the ongoing session highlight video compilations, you will have noticed that I try to put as much realism into the maps as possible by using actual scans of nature. I try to stay away. This is my own personal opinion. You can do it however you want, but for the way I go, I try to stay away from like Saturday morning cartoon-looking graphics as much as possible. To me, it just looks cheesy, and I try to make it look as photorealistic as possible, with the exception, of course, of the player character tokens themselves. I have no control over that. They are what they are. If I could photograph myself in different outfits and different, armors and things, I would, and use that instead. It would even make it even better, but it is what it is for what it is. And lastly, regarding music selection, I only choose tracks of music that add to the experience rather than take away from it. That goes for sound effects as well. I stay away from contemporary music and lead more into the kind of like epic movie, genre for effect. And pay attention to what you're doing. Use the audio that you're using and the tokens for effect. Be very calculated in what you pick and when you key it up, because it will have an effect on the players. It would be highly immersive, and they will thank you for it. And the last most recent example I could think of very quickly was when I put the heavily creepy music in the Demoness Temple, and then I had a girl laughing in the background, which I got a rise out of Paul, I think, on that one.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to hear it again, but I think it was me.
Yeah. So anyways, and that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share that with you, and this concludes the our DM 101 session. You're more than welcome to hang around. We're going to play some D&D here right now. Our next up-and-coming talks will include Roll20 equipment recommendations, things that I'm using right now, things that are cheap to get that sound great. That'll help you make your Roll20 experience the best it can be. Other map-making strategies. I'm going to show you next week how to do it the easy way, the quick way, where you don't have to be a graphic artist. You can play D&D right now. I'll show you later dynamic lighting. Other topics would include things I do before a session, kind of like pre-session activities, and also I'm gonna do an entire session on on using percentile dice, which I think would be very, very helpful. How to use those to effect and save yourself a lot of screwing around. So, anyways. Gentlemen,
I'll be teaching them how to maniacally laugh as a DM.
That's the next lesson.
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question for you. Do you have other ways to get music other than what's on Roll20? Is there another way to load music up?
Unfortunately, well, yes, there is a way. I found a way, but I have to install the software. And this is what it is. Through Roll20, no, you're screwed. You have to use the what the hell's it called? The cloud or the
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, yeah. The jukebox that's in Roll20, it retrieves all of that audio and shit from SoundCloud, and you're stuck with that. Now, if you have a SoundCloud account, which I have, you can upload as much as you want. The problem is, and I voiced my concern to Roll20, is that I have like I have like specific music that I've been accumulating for 30 years, specific for D&D. Unfortunately, the problem is that they're all commercial. I can't upload commercial music to this site. You know what I mean? Because then anybody and their brother would be able to get to it. It's not like I'm the only person that would be able to access. When you upload to SoundCloud, everybody that's in the SoundCloud community can get to it, and I can't do that. So, but I did find, I think, a solution. And the solution is this. You have to Google it and you can find it. There's a program that allows you to wire your audio path inside of your computer. I forget the name of it. It's free. It's free where you can send them a donation. But anyways, what the gist of it does is it allows you to use music on your computer and run it into Skype, I think, or into something else to get it onto the, I don't know, you can specify where it's coming from and where you want to end it up, and that might help. Now, if somebody watching Twitch knows a solution and can put that in the chat window, it certainly would be appreciated, and that would help us out a lot, 'cause honestly, I've got some really good music, you know. I've got a lot of Midnight Syndicate.
I was just saying, I'd like to get some music that are like bards, actual bards. My wife, I think, had a tape at one time that was some bard from a Renaissance fair. He made a couple of tapes and stuff, and if I can get that stuff online, that'd be awesome music to have for this type of a game. You know.
Oh yeah.
And not to mention fun other, I don't know, classic Celtic, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Yes, exactly.
You said it is hard to find in the cloud within Roll20.
Right. Yeah. I can, honest to God, the only stuff that I have that even falls along those lines is like, this is
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna happen there. I think the only thing I got music-wise that kind of falls in that sort of genre is like yeah, like this one, Celtic Village.
All right.
I have that all the way.
We enter the temple down once deep yet.
So maybe just we'll let is that too loud?
I just cut it down. Everyone can do that themselves by going to master volume under the gear.
Yeah, and the controls let you control music volume.
I just had to turn it down because every single time you come into the game, it automatically goes to max.
I put it halfway. Let me just go ahead and kick things off here. I've got some interesting stuff to tell you. We'll hand out some money here in a little bit, but just let me give you a kind of a heads up as to what's going on here. You guys have traveled about 500 miles
Just to get up
across mountains and valleys and plains, and you've arrived at a port city not far away from where you were previously in Saltmarsh of Highport. And now for several years, organized bands of pirates and slavers have been making a living by raiding all the coastal towns in that whole area. They descend quickly and ruthlessly on the small towns and villages and carry off innocent citizens into the night. Although these marauders were not approved by the lords and rulers of the lands they raided, they were allowed to continue the depredations. Feuding amongst the lords and lack of funds prevent all but an occasional naval battle with the villains and the slow fortification of towns.
All right.
Bribery was often a more effective method of protecting one's land from the incursions of these avaricious sea wolves.
Yeah, 705.4 mile trip just to get up here, and then we're do that one thing and come down when we're supposed to go back to Homla anyway for selling and whatever repairs. We didn't get to do that yet.
Yeah, we'll do that here in a minute. I'm just kind of whetting your appetite here a little bit. But recently, however, the slavers' attacks have become more frequent and vicious. Believing their prey to be weak and helpless, the raiders have burnt entire villages and pulled down the walls of towns. Women, children, and whole families have disappeared, and through bribes are accepted, the agreements are ignored. Vast tracts of coastline have been reduced to ashes. Nothing left except for like wild animals. The lords have finally become determined to take action, forgetting their squabbles against each other, to unite against the marauders of the yellow sails. The information gained from escaped slaves and those fortunate enough to have been found and brought by families or friends, the lords have traced the slavers to a part from which they launched their swift attacks on the coast, the despoiled city of Highport. Some who have lost kin and fortune to the reavers have advised taking a fleet